Someone please confirm if I'm audible.
Yeah.
So their strength is compared to.
Your voice is breaking.
Is it better?
Yes.
That the strength will be much lesser as comparisons.
Your voice is still breaking. Are you guys able to hear Abhishek?
No, sir. It's very, the voice is breaking every now and then.
Okay, I think Abhishek has some internet issue. So today we will resume to build the application which we were building the last session. So I'll share my screen and then start the session. Okay. So I'll just quickly give you an overview what we were doing in the last session. Can someone confirm my voice is audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir.
So the last session, if you remember, I'll just give a quick overview what we were doing in the last session. So in the last session, we were trying to implement the login and log out, basically the authentication and authorization in our application. So we had we had a API. So this time we are not going to discuss about the API. We will be focusing on the front end today. So in the last session, we set up a store. So the reason we set up the store because, I mean, if you see we have a logged in state, and logged in state means the user is logged in. If the value of the logged in state is true, then it says that the user is logged in, and this state should be known to all the components. That's why we have set up a store. Okay. And what we also defined two mutations, login and logout. So what the login is doing, it's setting the value of the logged in state true and the logout state false. And we are also defining a login user action, which is like sending a post request to this URL with a data which is fixed for now. But what we are going to do, we will be collecting this data from the form, and then we will be posting this data to the server. to the API which we have built. And if you remember, this endpoint has been given from the Flash security. We have not implemented this endpoint. And then what we are doing, once the request is successful, we are storing that information inside the local storage with the key name token, and we are then committing the login. And when it comes to the logout user, what we are doing, we are just removing the token from the local storage and committing the logout. This means that the logged in state will be false. So this was the Vuex which this is the store we created last time. And we are, for now, we are using this state in this login.js. So what we are doing, we have two buttons, login and logout. Once the user clicks on the login, then it activates, it dispatches the XN login user, and if the user clicks on the logout, it dispatches the XN logout user. I'll just run this application and it's running. Okay, so here is our login. So if you click on the login, it will say the state is true. If you will say the logout, then it will say the state is false. And if you go to the console, hopefully we are logging. Yeah, here is the access token. So what we are going to do first, we'll go to the Vuex, and one thing we need to, so what I said, that once we have the access token, we can include that access token in authentication in the auth required. I'll tell you the exact name. We'll send that authentication token in the authentication token header, and this is to say to the server that I am the authenticated user. Please provide me the resource. So every time we will make a request to the server which is like protected, we will send the authentication token. Then only it will send me the resource. Otherwise, it will say unauthorized. Okay. So we will start with the Vuex again. So what we will do first, so one thing, all the component will also need the authentication token. So, and we are already storing this authentication token in local storage, and we are only going to load this authentication token inside our store when the user is logged in. That is, the logged in value is true. So, and what will be the the appropriate place to store that information? I mean, token. Like, where do you store? We store the derived state.
So in local storage.
No, derived state. Why do we use getters? So we use getters. It's like getters are like computer property for the store, and we store the information which is derived from the state. So derived by the state, I mean, it depends on the state. So what I'm saying, the token should be a variable which depends on the state that whether the user is logged in or not. If the user is logged in, then we will set the token which we have stored inside the local storage. Otherwise, we will say null. Is state dot logged in is equal to true, then return local storage token else. So we have created a getter. Okay, I need to give some name. So inside the getters, I have created one getter token, and which returns the token stored inside the local storage if the state dot logged in is true. Otherwise, it will return null. So what I will do in order to validate whether our getter is working fine, I'll go to the login.js and try to print this here. Dot. Let me check spelling. That's fine. Login.js, this dot store dot getters dot token. Check. Yeah, you can see that this is our token. So we have set up the getter correctly. So if I log out, this will go away because the token depends on whether depends on the state whether the user is logged in or not. So if the user is logged in, this token is available to the to all the components. If not, then it's not available. So if I click on the login, then the state will be true, that is the user is logged in and the token is available to all the components. Okay. So now the next thing what we will do. So if you see the fetch function, so inside the fetch function, what it accepts two parameter URL and init object. We know that we are going to send the request with the authentication token header. I mean, most of the time we are going to send the request with the authentication token header. So why not implement this authentication token inside this fetch function so that we don't need to pass this authentication token from our init object. What we pass from when we call the fetch function, the URL and the init object, which contains the information like the headers and the type of request we want to make and like body of the request. So what I want to do, I don't want to pass the authentication header again and again from all these components. I just want to like give a hint to this fetch function that include the authentication header inside the init object. Is this clear what I want to do and why I want to do it?
Can you repeat this part again?
So what I'm saying that when we are making the fetch function, so if you go here, home.js, we are going to make a request. We are going to use the fetch function to make a request to the server with the authentication header. Because if you will not send the authentication header, that the response will be 403, that is not authorized. So what I'm saying that instead of including the header, this authentication header in all the requests, we will implement this authentication token inside this uh, this fetch function.
Okay, sir.
Because we are going to again make a post request, delete request, and all those requests, and all time and every time we will make a request, we will put the authentication token header. So why not implement here?
Okay, so by default it will fetch
Yeah,
data
it will
by
put the
by
authentication.
that connection. Yes. Yeah.
So the first thing I will do, because this is not a component, this is just a function, we'll need to like import that getter inside this module. If it's a component, then by default it is the store variables are accessible, but this is not a component, this is just a JavaScript module. So we need to like import that. Import store from index index.js. So before, so what I will do, I will use this thing. In order to make our code more readable, what we will be doing, we will be sending a object to make a request to the fetch function, and we will like decouple that object in URL and init object, and one more parameter I will add. So what I'm saying, that when we will make a request, so this time we will pass an object as a parameter to the fetch function, and we will like spread the object with URL, init object, and auth required. I mean, in order to make the code more readable. I'll write, then you will understand. So for now, let's write the code. But let's say someone passes the object which doesn't have URL, so we will throw an error, because we will not be able to make a fetch request. So if URL is equal to undefined, so message URL required. Right. And then if someone doesn't send the init object, we will consider that this is an empty object. Object to undefined object empty object. And if or required is undefined, we will so this is the way you like put the default value of some parameter in JavaScript. So what we are doing, so instead of to make the code more readable, instead of passing the URL init object and authenticated required, we will be passing an object which has three properties: URL init object and authentication required. And we will just spread all those parameters and then we are defining some default values of the URL. If someone will not pass the URL, then it will be error, will not like go forward. If the init object is undefined, that is someone has not passed the init object, then init object will initialize with the empty object, and if auth required is not given, then we will say that auth required is false. So this is how you here what I'm doing, I am just initializing all these parameters, URL init object and auth required. If auth required is equal to true, then what we are going to do, we are going to like append that authentication header inside this inside the like init object, and then we'll check if init object dot header, if init object has header is equal to undefined, I mean that init object doesn't have it doesn't have a header, then we will insert a header, init object dot header is equal to I will just copy and paste this one. So what we are doing, if the init object doesn't have headers, then we will okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, okay. So the first we define the like a default value of all these parameters, and then we check whether if the auth required is true, then and if the init object doesn't have header, then we define the header, and if it already has a header, we just include this header. Else init object dot headers p, and then authentication token is equal to this one. Okay. So we need to make a change here. Now, when we are making a request from here, so what we need to do now, we will pass a object here, URL to this one, init object to this one, and just close this object. So now this code looks more readable. So we are making a request to the fetch function with an object which has a URL, this one, and init object, this one, and we are not passing the authentication required, as we are not passing any authentication required here. So the default is false. So here we have defined that if auth required is undefined, then we will say that auth required is false. And we are appending the auth required, the authentication token in the header only when the auth required is true. So I hope this should work. Yeah, still working. So any question
So
from the
can you
changes I made?
show index.js, right? In the changes you made.
Index.js, Vue.js, yeah, here.
Yeah, they're the in fetch function.
Yeah, I didn't change much. What I did, what we were doing, I'll try to write it somewhere. I will try to write in the comment. So what initially what we are doing, so let's fetch function, and we are passing p, p2, p3. So we were passing 3 arguments like this. But now what we are doing, we are making an object like this, and p and the value for some p, some value like s1 and s2. Let's see. So what it makes, at one thing, I mean, this will make the code more readable because I know what is this. S1, this is the value of some parameter. This is the value, and S2 and S1 is the value of this parameter. S3 is the value of this parameter. And what we are doing, once we are passing an object, and if you go here, then inside the fetch function, what we are doing, we are like spreading that object, and we are like collecting the value stored in the URL parameter inside this URL and this init object, and then auth required. I mean, this syntax we have already used.
Yes, sir, clear.
The reason why I did this, because I mean the code will be more readable. Otherwise, if you will keep on passing the parameters, and if the number of parameter increase, you don't know. I mean, what parameter represents what. But if you make the request like this, so when you are making a request, I mean, when you are passing the value to the fetch function, you know that this is the value of URL, this is the value, this is the init object, and if the authentication required, you are passing the authentication required, then you know this is the value of authentication required. I mean, this is to make the code more readable, nothing else. And the reason why I set this default values, because let's say we have nothing to send in the init object. Let's say we are making a GET request. So in that case, we don't want to pass the init object. We just want to pass the URL and auth required. So when you call this fetch function, then the value of init object will be undefined because you have not passed anything in the init object. So it will be undefined. So what we will do, we will just assign a empty object in order to make the code uniform. And the same thing we are doing auth required. If you see this login dot this index.js, we are just passing URL init object. So the value of the auth required will be false. And we are appending the auth required header only when the auth required is true. So if you are not passing auth required is equal to true, then auth required will by default will be false. So I mean the authentication token will not be added. Because if you are making a request to get the authentication token, we will not send the authentication token, because this is why we are making a request to get the authentication token.
So can you please explain line number 12, 13 and 14, line number 12 and 13?
12 and
Doubt
13.
I'm having, we are doing a post. In that case, init object should not be empty. So if it is undefined, we are making it empty. Why we are doing this?
No, we are not making it empty. If you will not pass the init object.
Okay.
If you will not pass the init object, then the value of init object will be undefined because we have not received anything.
Yeah.
So the JavaScript will automatically assign the value undefined. So if the value of init object is undefined, so the value, so that we will assign a empty object, because the reason why we are making the empty object, init object, the default value empty object, because maybe we require to put the auth required. So if we don't have init object, so how will we append this header inside that object?
But sir, without init object, there is no point in putting this auth required now, because init object is empty. It is not going to specify anything about the header or the method or the body.
No, the init object is empty. Let's say we are making a request which doesn't have, I mean, we are passing some parameter. We are not passing init object to this fetch function. Let's assume this scenario. That means then the init object, the value of init object will be undefined, right?
Yes.
So what we are doing, if it is undefined, then we ourselves are assigning an empty object to the init object. So now even you have not passed init object to the fetch function, but the value of init object is empty object.
And when will we having this index.js login user function? That time we are taking care that we are passing URL, we are passing the init object, so that will do our job. Is it the case?
Yes. I mean, if we are passing init object, then this code will not run.
Okay.
This code will not have any effect on our program because the value of init object is already assigned. This code will only run when we will not pass init object. Is this clear now?
So still I'm not getting that. What is the advantage of making this init object empty? How it will still work?
I will try again.
Yeah.
So let me make a get request. So here this is a fetch function. Okay. So what I will do, I will just make this a object. URL is equal to this one, and I will not pass any init object here. Okay.
Okay.
I will not pass init object because we don't require to pass init object. And what I will pass, I will pass auth required. No, I will not pass authentication code.
Okay,
I will pass auth required is equal to true. Okay, smart. Now we are not passing init object here. So so when you come to the fetch function, the value of init object will be what?
And right now it is
Undefined.
undefined. Yeah.
Undefined. So when the control comes to line number 12,
Mhm.
this expression is true.
Right.
So the value of init object will become empty object.
Okay.
Now we have empty object,
Mhm.
but we have passed the auth required is equal to true.
Correct.
So this condition will become true.
Mhm.
And because this condition will become true, so this code will run. Okay. So then we will see that the init object has headers.
Okay.
Because right now init object is empty, so it doesn't have header.
So header is also
So
undefined, and we
the
are
header
creating
is,
the header.
yeah. So we are creating an init object dot headers, and we are creating a header which has authentication token.
Right. Okay.
And if we will pass, let's say we are making a post request, then in that post request we will pass the init object, but that init object will have only the header information, that the content type of this request is JSON.
JSON type, yes.
Okay, so in that case we will have the header. So we have the header. So what we will do, we will add one more header. Authentication token is equal to this one.
Correct.
So this is kind of multi-purpose function. This has become a multi-purpose function. We can use from all the from all the components.
Yeah. Now it is clear, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Now let's check this then. You can see that it works. So now we have authentication token, everything we have. So what we will do now, we have already imported the store from the Vuex store. We will remove this token and we will use store dot getters dot. Okay, because if we will change the credential, the authentication token will change, and that will be available inside this this getter, a token getter. Store. Okay, I'll just copy and paste. Okay, you understood why I did this?
Yes, sir.
So once we will log in, if you are logged out, then the store.getters.token value is null. And if it's logged in, then it has the value that it has an authentication token. So the init object dot headers will have authentication token only when the user is logged in. Otherwise, it will not have the authentication token. It will be simply null. So no point of sending this authentication token. The server will say that you don't have a valid authentication token. So now we have all these things. Now if we'll go to the index.js, so URL is already there. So what we will do now this value is still hard coded inside our code. So what we need to do, we need to get this information from a form.
Yes.
And this form we will create here inside the login. So what I will do, I will create a form here. I'll create input form. Input type is equal to text and I'll also put some placeholder. Placeholder is equal to, it will be email, and let's do this. And similar, I will just copy this one, and this one will be password. Password and placeholder will be password. Okay, so we have created two input fields. One is of type password and one is of text. The placeholder for the first will be email, and for this second will be password. And we have click login user. So I mean, let's check whether we have the form.
So why are we not taking input type as email?
Okay, we can take it. So the point is, we have a form, email, and password, and we have a button login. So we'll put some value here, and then based on that we'll log in. Let's log out, log in, and then this state should change.
But sir, now this username and password, this should be available on API, na? So that it will provide you the token.
Yes. So
some modification is also needed there as well.
No more. Yeah, that I mean, I will just, what I will do, I will here, if you see, I have already, I mean, this the actions, it also takes the some parameter. You can also pass some data to the action.
Yes.
So
no,
I
I'm
will
talking
pass
about API, sir. API. In API, new username and password. Suppose I want to create new user, then
that we will do.
Okay.
We already have an endpoint that will
sir.
create a new user.
Fine, sir.
So for this, what we need to do, we need to first define a data. And here, return user info, an object, and then we call email, and we'll set the initial value null, and password, set the initial value null. And what we will do, we will remodel with this information. Remodel equal to info dot, and the same thing I will do the password also, but this time so we have remodeled this, and we will pass this value login user, and we'll pass this value to the this action. And now what we will do, we will go to the index.html, and instead of using this hard-coded data, we will just put user here. Did you guys understood the flow?
Yes, sir.
So what we are doing, we have created a data user info, which have two fields, email and password, and we are remodeling it with the with this email input and this password input. So if you change the value of this email and password, the value of this user info will change. And once the user clicks on the login button, it will just take this information and then pass it to this login user action. And then what we are doing, we are just converting it into a JSON string and then making a post request. So instead of using that hard-coded data, we are passing the data entered by the user. So let's check this.
Yes.
Working. So we have the form and it's getting the data, authentication token, everything is fine. So now what we will do, we will just remove this logout button from this login page and we will put it inside the header. So where is the home page? No, app.js. So if you see that the header component, it's the global component. So we will remove it, this header component from here, and we will make a new component head. .js and copy this app.js template from here. X inside this. And app.js. I just remove this. And instead of using this header component, I'll just register this component here. And, header. Let me check.
So we need to import it.
And now we will remove this one. Header. And it should be the same. From the header. Okay. So now what I will do, well, inside the header component, I will just import that logout. And I will make a span. Element, and inside that I just give it the ID. And I will define its style here. I'll float this to the right first. ID 10 pixel. Pointer and then float right. we can see that we have a logout here. So what we need to do now, we need to take this login. So what I will do, I'll just copy this code. C, and inside the header.js, I'll paste it. And I don't need login user here. Only logout user is fine. So I just, once someone clicks on it, run the logout. And I will remove this logout button from my login page. A logout user, I don't need it here. And I will remove this button from there. Okay, no button. And I don't have to check this getter now because we know that it is working. So I'll remove this. Okay. So if it's logged in, and then if I will click on check on, so you can see that all the tasks are here, but once I log out and okay.
I think there is a logout there in the map actions in app.js.
App.js here. No, it should be header.js. Okay, spelling is wrong.
One more.
Click was wrong. Spelling of the click. So now if I log out and try to access this again, you see that it's unexpected response. So you cannot access this because you are logged out. But what we would like, so once someone log out, we should return back to the home page. Like if you are using an application and once you click on the logout, the application redirect you to the login page. This means that if you want to use this application, please log in again. So we will implement this here. So where we have implemented this login action, it's here. So once this commit logout, we need to set it inside the logout. So once the user log out, it will remove the item from the token and then commit the logout. And one more thing we need to do, we need to direct the user to the login page. Router plus index. Oh, it's a router. So because the same region we had to import the store inside the fetch function because fetch function is not a component, so it will it will, I mean, the store variable will not be accessible inside the fetch function. So the same reason, the inside the view X, because the view, this index.js is not a component, so the router will not be available. The router variable will not be available inside this index.js. So we need to import that router. After this one, router dot push and name login. Hopefully the name is login. Where is the router? Login. It's fine. So if you go to the login, and if you will click one @gmail.com and password 1234. If I click on the login, yeah, it's true. And if I will try to access the home page, it will show all the headers. But once I will click on the logout, it will direct here. And if you will try to access this endpoint again, it will say unexpected response. Any question?
So from login, is it going to the task page immediately?
From login?
That list of the task page.
Yeah,
Task list.
once you log in, it should direct you to the
Task
page. So we'll implement this also. So I will go inside the Vuex. So once you commit the login, your router.push the name home. So let's try this. Login. One, two, three, four. Login. You are being redirected to this task page. The home page. One thing inside the home, I don't need to put this one, just to test whether the store is working fine. Any question till now?
No, sir.
So if I will click on the task one, it says the URL required. What happened?
We modified the base URL is still there, no?
Yes.
So there should not be this error.
Yeah.
We haven't modified this.
Let's go and check what's the problem. So, I mean, once we click on that link, it goes to the task.js, right?
Yes.
Fetch function.task ID. Okay. The problem is now we have modified how the fetch function takes the argument. Now it takes a object.
Yes.
So the fetch function, what this fetch function does, URL okay, I have written it on the wrong place. URL okay, and is there anything we need to pass? Auth required is equal to true. Auth required is equal to okay, so it says that this is the URL you need to send the request, and auth required is also true. That is, you put the authentication token header inside the init object. And now let's try this. Yeah, you can see that.
Yes.
Okay. So one more thing I would like to do. So if someone visit the home page and it like the user is not logged in, so what we should do? So what should be the line of action if someone try to visit the home page but he is not logged in? Yes, he is not logged in.
There should be error, unauthorized access.
No, I mean the best thing would be direct him to the
Login page.
Login page.
Login page. Okay.
I mean, it's really easy to implement this. If this dot store dot state dot login. What was the logged in? Logged in is equal to false. If it's false, then this dot dot push to the main login. So what will happen if someone is not logged in? Then this will become true, and the user will be directed to the login page. Let's try this. So let's log out first, and let's go here. So you can see that the user has been directed to this login page. Let's check this again. It's being directed to this login page. But if let's say I will log in now, to @ and password 1234. While login. So once you log in, it will direct you to this page. So let's create one form where user can and rest of the thing I guess you can do. Like if you go to the task.js, so inside the task.js, you can see that we are like making this put request and delete request. So what we need to do, we will just change all these things with the auth required. This init object will be this one, and also auth required equal to 2, and then we'll close this object. So this will be the fetch function, and everything will remain same. And here on mounting, everything is fine. The delete is working. No, delete we have already done. update task, delete task, and the task form. So here, okay, we need to make change here also. So we are start delete object is this one. This is here, and then auth required to data, and when we are mounting here also URL is this. We don't need to send this one. Auth required is I guess everything is fine now. So let's try this, and then so go to the task one and try to edit this task. You can see that this edited description. Task submit. Data successfully inserted. If I'll go to the task one again, it says that edited description of task one. It's working then. Go to the delete task. Tasks, are you sure? If yes, and if I will go back to here, so there is problem with the delete task. Let's check. Okay, let's go to the console here. Delete task. Delete 500 internal server error. Where is the delete task? If your face function make the distort task ID init object method is equal to delete auth required true. We'll take a look. Everything seems correct to me. This dot task ID this dot route dot parameters. Let's go to the server, check what happened. Okay, I will check. So let's leave this for now. And let's create one more form called, we'll create one more form, and that will be to create a user. Signup. Signup dot JS. So default. So the delete, other than delete, everything was working. I'll check whether it was a problem with the server or we are making some mistake. So we will create a form here, template, and inside this, just put everything inside a root div. So, are you guys have any question till now? Because I am going to repeat what I did what I am doing for the last 1.5 hours. I'll just create a form and send a post request to the server. And that will create a new user. That's it. So there is nothing new to learn here. So that's why I'm asking whether you guys have any question.
Okay till now.
So, input / input. It is equal to text and placeholder is equal to username. Self-closing. Placeholder email and password. Placeholder okay. Password. Let's put some dashes. So how we are going to collect this data?
You need a button.
So let's write the PR here. I mean, this is very lazy way of doing things, but we are not concerned about the HTML and CSS here. Button. Yes. Sign up. We have this button with the text sign up. So what we need to do here? What I need to do
We need a method.
Data first, which we will use to like debug. Data and
Object.
data and return. Sign data. Has email. Start with the null. and password. Start with the null. Username. So we have the form, and what we will do, we will remodel. Model sign up data dot mail, and I'll copy all these things. The first was username. Second one is email. Third one is password. Okay. And then once we will click on this button, then so we will define this method here. Methods. So inside that method, I will just copy the name. What we are supposed to do. So what I will do, I will
We need to
first we need to import the fetch function and the API URL.
post operation.
Import fetch function. API URL from config. Config.js, and then what we will do, we'll make a we'll make use of fetch function, and then we'll pass a data URL.
URL.
URL will be okay. Let me check the URL. So here you go to the resources and go to the init.py. So we have add resource
Users.
task users. So we will make a request to the users, post request to the users with some data. So if you go to the users, and if you take a look at the post method, so what it does, it takes the data and create a user. That's it. So we are going to make a post request to the users, to the /users. The URL, and that will be API URL. Let me check once again the API URL. API URL. So API URL
Users.
Okay, and then I will need to specify the init object. That is going to be an object.
So here authentication is not needed, no?
No, authentication is needed.
Needed.
No, it's not needed.
It's not needed, because first time we are creating user.
We are creating the user. It's methods post method,
Headers.
and one more thing, we need to set the headers
Content type.
headers that will be content type. Content type application slash JSON header application content type. Headers, and now we need to set the body. The body will be JSON
Not stringify.
JSON stringify, and then what we will do, we'll pass this
Sign up data.
one stars.js. Okay, before we sign up, we need to create we need to go to the routers and
Index.
create a path for this component. Path plus sign up. Component. To import this. It's already imported. So now let's go to the /sign up page. Sign up. Okay, let's fill this form. User 4. Let's make it user 41. 41@gmail.com. Password 1234. We're not doing anything. We have not done anything after the response.
So we have to prompt.
We have just sent, we have just sent the request. Fetch request. Yes. This is going to return a promise. If it's successful, then we will alert a message. Alert was created. And if not, catch. Let's take the error and see what error it's saying. alert error. Now let's check this. Let's log out first. And then go to the /signup. There's 42. There's 42 @.com. Password 1234. Once you sign up, error is beyond reference. Sign up is not. This should be this or sign up. This. Now let's make an attempt again. Hopefully this will be successful. 42 @.com. Password 1234.
Yes.
Created, it says. Okay. Let's go to the login page. And
User 42.
@.com. Password 1234. Okay. There is no, like, it doesn't have any task, so it doesn't show any task. Let's create one. Task 1. And let's submit this. You can see that we have
Yes.
task 1. Create here. The task. The delete is not working. I don't know why.
So URL for delete, that is to be modified now.
Yeah. I think there is some issue. I'm not able to figure out what happened. Task.js. The delete method is delete. Auth required is equal to true. API URL is correct. This task ID is correct. This was working perfectly fine. Are you sure? There is some problem with, I think, this one. This task ID. Task ID. Okay, let's make a. Let's delete this and check what is happening. API/task/4. Everything is fine here. So I will go to the API and the API, and I will go to the task and check the delete auth required to token. There's some problem with this endpoint delete. Not ID bad request. Why this logger is not done. Let's restart this. let's do this. I mean, this is the problem with the API. I'll resolve this, everything else is fine. Everything else is working. So, I mean, and you can also implement all those things that if the user is not logged in, then direct it to the login page. And you can also put some like in beneath the login form, you can put a link which will direct the user to the sign up page if he is not already logged in. This kind of functionality you can add by yourself. I'll take a look at the delete API. I mean delete method of this task API and try to check what is the problem.
So by the time, can you please show the API WSL command? I've gone through your readme.md file.
Yeah.
You have mentioned that Python 3.7.9 Git and virtual env installation,
Yeah.
and then installation steps.
Yeah.
And that installation steps is to be carried out in WSL terminal, right?
Yes.
CD task API.
Yes.
Okay, but I'm getting error. It says pip not found, command pip not found. But there are 18 similar ones.
So the pip should be there now. Pip
is already there, no? But in WSL, when I run that command, no? Which
have you
one?
tried
That
installing? Have you tried installing anything using pip?
Pip install virtual env. I did that.
Do you use pip 3 or pip only?
Only pip. That is in PowerShell terminal. I executed that command. It is pip install virtual env. It's already there. So it's changing to that virtual environment. And then I'm adding new terminal that is as a WSL. And in WSL, I carried out the next command. That is source local underscore setup.sh.
Yes.
And when I run that command, then it gives that error. Can I copy paste here in chat box?
Yeah.
It says in WSL that pip not found, command pip not found. Just a moment. Yes, sir, I posted.
Yeah. Command pip not found, but there were 18 similar ones.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the problem with your pip.
Okay. So pip to be installed system wide or in the virtual
Yes.
folder itself? System wide
No,
installation.
the system wide.
Okay, okay. So there I'm missing, I think. I will try, sir, once again.
Yeah, because I mean you are using pip to install the virtual environment also.
Yes, yes.
So
So in CMD, I have to install that pip.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean it should be available to the whole system. Did anyone try like installing that API?
The system-wide it shows 21.1.1. That comes by default with the Python.
I followed the same step and it was working. I verified that. So are you using source?
Yes, sir, I'm using source. Now I'm updating it system-wide, the pip 22.1.2. I think that must work.
Any question from anyone? So if you guys don't have any questions, so can we close the session then?
Sir, quiz 2 will be till week 8 or 9.
Week 8.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So we are having revision on Friday, no?
Saturday.
Saturday, okay. So do we need a Python under WSL also? Under WSL, do we need Python to be installed in Ubuntu environment?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
So
if it's available system-wide, I don't think you need to do anything.
actually, it's not working. It's available system-wide. Shall I try installing in WSL?